Hi everyone, this is the Recreate podcast with Michael and Teresa where we talk about our favorite TV shows. Today, we're going to discuss Hunted Season 3, Episode 6. For anyone who hasn't watched the show, there are spoilers ahead. Today, we'll discuss how Ondeanne and Shelli go glamping and Akec and Joe consider doing a show at the comedy club. If you missed the episode, you can catch all the action on 10play. Hunted AU Season 3, Episode 6, breakdown coming up.
So we haven't seen as much of Akec and Joe on the show, so finally we're getting to see a glimpse of them. Akec is a former AFLW football player. I think I said football twice in that sentence. And Joe is a comedian from Ethiopia. She's from Kenya. So good to see some African representation on the show. I know Melbourne has a significant African population, so good to see them represented.
Yes, I really like seeing more people of diverse backgrounds on the show, and I think they just represent the African community really well.
Yeah, and doing very interesting work too, so it's good to see. Anyway, to their gameplay, we haven't seen a lot of it. We've seen them sort of being flashy on the show.
I think they were driving a limousine.
Driving a limousine.
Oh, they were in a car of a limousine driver who's a pal of Joe's, I think.
Yeah, and we see them taunting the hunters a little bit with a bit of a screw you cryptic message to them, which isn't all that cryptic. But Joe's a comedian, so he likes to make fun of stuff. And so he's having that itch, that comedic itch, where he just has to do a comedy session. Like the guy is on the run and he's like, you know what? He's twitching like a fiend. He has to do some stand-up.
I thought that was very risky. I was actually surprised that he was attempting to do something so daring. I mean, it's one thing to, to get, like, say, like Kaylee and Tony, they go on a plane, they go on a boat, to try and act as a decoy, and throw the hunters off. But for Joe to be up in a club where there's lots of people, where there's going to be cameras probably pointing at him, people who know him to do a show, I think that is, well, that's something. That's something different.
That speaks to his personality. He's really out there. He's really brazen. He's quite, confident and cocky in a way.
Yeah.
But thank God for a woman's intuition, as we find out.
Well, I'm just thinking, I don't know if he's really thought this through very much. I mean, what if they corner you at the club?
He hasn't thought it through, but Akec has. But we get to that later. But before that, we see that Joe's best material, or most of his material, involves teasing Akec for being single, the poor thing.
Oh, I don't think that was very nice. I mean, I think that's like one of the worst jokes that you can actually say to a girl.
Right? Like, if you're going to make jokes, stay away from teasing women in their 30s for being single. That is just taboo. But yeah, he has a sense of humor and she has some very thick skin for being around him.
Well, I was going to say, okay, so he wanted to put out this message to the hunters with a screw and a U. He said that that's very cryptic. I mean, I thought it was actually quite obvious. And I'm not actually sure. We haven't seen in the show how he actually pulls that off.
Yeah, I don't know whether he mails it to them or whether he takes a photo and tweets it to them or whether he leaves it at a site. But we haven't seen them receive it. But in either case, taunting the hunters, never a good idea. Speaking of taunting, he's been taunting that backside and eating chicken straight away without any hand washing in between. The man has to take a lesson on hygiene. And the driving while eating fried chicken, man, I just can't abide that.
Joe, you got to think about driving when you're eating as well, I think.
I can't stand dirty hands in the car. Joe, I love you, but I can't abide that, man. You're not taking the wheels in my car, and you're not eating in my car if we ever hang out.
Well, it does get the steering wheel quite oily and greasy.
It's gross, man. Do not touch my computer or my car after you've eaten food. Anyway.
Back at Hunter HQ, Jay, the cyber expert, has actually pinged that there's a comedy festival coming up and that Joe might be doing a show. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Jay's the MVP. Jay is one of the best people on the team, one of my favorites. He's really glowed up this year. He's looking really slick with that ponytail, man. Good work.
Yeah, it's because I actually thought in season 2 they actually featured Jay a lot more, whereas in this season he seems a little bit hidden.
There's a lot of
in the background. Yeah,
there's a lot of cyber people this year. A lot more limelight to share. But he is regularly getting really good leads and notifying the heads of the department about good leads. And this is a great lead because he's able to perceive that Joe's a bit of a narcissist, if I may use that word in a positive way. He likes the limelight. Maybe, just maybe, he cannot resist doing a bit today. And Jay's able to pick up on that, the date, the location of where he's likely to perform. And Reese, typical management material. Yep, good idea. Claims it for himself. Takes credit. But damn, Reese is really good at delivering those killer lines, though. So, good on you, Reese.
Yeah, I think with Reese, I find he's always like telling the room, okay, everyone to the, to the square table, like, to the big screen,
Yeah,
so he definitely likes to deliver those lines, I think.
yeah, he's there for delivering those punchlines and killer lines like "We got them, we're gonna get them, they haven't got a chance, we take their
Yeah.
prisoners."
Or like, oh, I'm in the army, Ondean's in the navy. Well, we don't let the navy get on top of us. The army's got to beat the navy.
Yeah, I wonder if he does actually any work other than just delivering killer lines. Anyway,
Well, that is a job in
that's
itself.
a job. Not many people do it as well as Reese. He's got the face, he's got the look. And then we cut to the stakeout with the hunters setting up for the actual stakeout itself.
We see
Yeah.
three undercover hunters inside. So we have one of the ground teams and but Bugsy, I think. He's one of the experts in Hunted HQ. So they go undercover and it's actually quite interesting seeing ground hunters wearing normal clothes because we're so used to seeing them in their official black attire.
The thing about ground hunters in civilian clothing, they look like policemen or undercover shoppers, at Westfields, if you've ever seen them. Even when they wear civilian clothing, it looks like they're wearing uniforms. I'm sorry. The clothes are like very Kmart-ish and they're tucked in. They just do not look like your typical comedy people. They look so hot. Like they are straight up 5-0. Like if you walked into a club or a bar and you saw them, you'd go, "You're 5-0, aren't you?"
Well, I feel like this is something that you pick up. I mean, I probably would have
These guys are
trouble
not Al
pointing them
Pacino
out, but
in Sipico. These guys are obvious undercovers. But anyway, I don't think anyone picks up on it. But they just look very stiff, rigid. They're not there for the laughs. It looks really obvious that they're just staking out as 5-0.
yeah. And it's a very big stakeout too because you have three undercover hunters inside, but you also have two on the outside. So there's actually five people circling this club, and it seems like at any time Akec and Joe could just turn up and just be pounced upon.
Yeah, one thing I don't like about the stakeout is they've got very obvious stakeout points. They have a very big guy wearing a GoPro and black security clothing, sitting in a bar opposite the club, just sitting there. And
I think we see the security guards from the comedy club checking him out and be like, "Oh wait, there's a hunter here."
yeah, they just get cited way too easy. They have not seen the definition of a stakeout, of going undercover. You're not meant to be seen. And they are so so obvious, so visible.
Yes, and I think the
It pisses
car
me
also
off.
as well. It's something that's very easily recognizable. It's like a big black
It's a
SUV.
Mahindras. If you see a Mahindras driving around, it's the Hunters, man. You don't see anyone driving a Mahindras other than Hunters. That car, yeah, they're not common.
Well,
Okay,
to be honest, I don't think I've actually even heard of the brand. I think since this show, because I was like, "Oh, Mahindras, that's a new brand." I
it's
think.
new and exclusive to the Hunters. It seems sponsored by the show. All good. We support them. But yeah, the stakeout. It's going bad. I can tell it's going to go bad. It's going to unfold badly. The security guards, who are obviously on Joe's side, have detected them. They look red hot. They just stick out in the scenery, even on the show. They do not look subtle or blended in at all.
And what did you think about the hunters on the inside? Because there would have been quite a few of Joe's contacts there. Do you think that they would have maybe spotted the hunters and let Joe know that, you
Yeah,
know?
they looked stiff as hell. They looked like they were just sitting upright, not laughing at the jokes. Ha ha ha.
And
This
they
is comedy.
Yes, and I think they're kind of like just keep looking around just to see where he is, trying to rather than actually pay attention to the show. Like if you know people who come and see a show, they're very their attention is turned to the
Yeah.
stage. Whereas for the hunters, it seems like they just keep
It
looking
reminds me
around.
of that meme, that Steve Buscemi meme on 30 Rock, where he goes to a high school undercover and is like, "Hello, fellow kids." The kids are all, "What?" Yeah, this reminds me of that. Hello, fellow comedy lovers. Ultimately, Joe White does not make an appearance. I think this turned out to be quite an effective scene. The show really produced it nicely here. If they show up, you have a great chase. If they don't show up, you still get a suspenseful stakeout. Nice production quality and interesting setting at a comedy club on the streets of Melbourne. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I think it was a good stakeout. I think definitely there were probably some points that the hunter could have improved on, like they were actually being very visible, and that might have scared off Joe and Akec. Maybe it's also Akec's, intuition that saved the day by telling Joe not to go because, like you said, he was being very brazen about it.
Yeah.
And I think this also follows up on the fact that back in a couple of episodes, we had Kaylee and Tony go to a rally and that was actually brought up
Oh
to Hunter's
yeah.
HQ, but they failed to follow up on that
Yeah,
lead.
yeah.
And we actually saw Kaylee and Tony. They actually did appear at the
Yeah.
rally, and if the Hunters had gone,
Yeah.
they would have had the chance to swoop in on and catch them.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just kind of remedifying this mistake here,
Yeah, good call. Good call.
and not missing out, not wanting to miss out on an actual opportunity.
Yeah, it was a good follow up. Just unfortunate. They need to work on their undercover game. Roaming around the streets of Melbourne with a security team outside a club, never gonna lure in the bait. They've got to be better at being discreet, undercover, down low. They were what we'd say red hot, man.
They
Anyway, it was a good scene.
Yeah, and I think good on a catch for telling Joe not to go. I think she did great there. She really saved them today.
Yeah, she did. And then we see Akec and Joe sort of making, much later in the episode, making an exit with another comedy contact and going down a highway, I think it is. And as they're going down, just coincidentally, they're going from Ballarat to the north and they pass
By Ondeanne and Shelli and the
and the
Hunters.
hunters. And it's a remarkable coincidence. A remarkable
Yeah,
coincidence.
I
So
think to be there at the same time,
the
same
same place in
place,
a
on the
massive
same day.
state. Huge
Yeah,
coincidence,
huge
right?
coincidence. I actually thought this could not happen, but yeah, what are the odds,
What are
really?
the
What
odds?
are the odds?
And so we jump over to Ondeanne and Shelli and we rewind back to see how they got to this situation.
So rewind back, we see Ondine and Shelley. They are shacking up with a close contact of Shelley, whose name is Kim. So Kim is a customer and close contact of Shelley. Shelley actually, we find out, has her own business. It's called Be Naturally Beautiful, and she sells balms that are made of beeswax. And Kim is a loyal customer. She has been following Shelley, and they're actually in close contact. And she happens to have a house in Apollo Bay, which is where Undine and Shelley are staying at the moment. What did you think about
Yeah,
that?
I think this is a satisfying overlap for the hunters to be able to conclusively draw the conclusion that she's a close contact. Okay, the 2 points of coincidence are that she's a Facebook friend and she's a customer, and number two, that she's in Apollo Bay, the last region that they were sighted. So this is a satisfying conclusion that I could draw, that the hunters were able to come to this conclusion. Whereas in the past, we've seen them make miraculous leaps of logic, you know,
Using only one point of deduction?
yeah, reducing hundreds of suspects and saying, hey, they know someone called Jane an hour away. Let's follow that up. And they happen to be right. This one, I'm satisfied. But Ondine, showing her spider senses, her investigative training, really drilling Shelley and Kim. How do you know each other? When was the last time you spoke? How often do you speak? Are you on each other's phones? Is it only through Facebook? Do you private? Like, she's just really uneasy, and she
On
can
edge, I
on
think.
edge. She can
Yeah.
tell something is amiss and that this is a real weakness in their game and a real vulnerability in their movements
Mm-mm-mm.
going forward. I think she really shows what a strong player she is here.
She is, and I think naturally her instincts are to be more wary,
Yeah,
whereas Shelley's kind of like the exact opposite. She's quite easygoing, free flowing.
we see
We
that
saw
later.
before,
Yeah,
like she just kind of like she likes, looking at nature, and
yeah,
I
she's the
think,
yin to the yang, and they make a good
yeah, they
mix.
make a good
I
mix. I
think those are
think,
the best teams,
yeah,
because you
like
don't want two people that are always tense and grilling each other and paranoid, and you don't want two people that are lackadaisical either. You need a balance, right?
Yeah, so I'm like the Shelly to your Ondeanne.
You think? I thought I
Yeah.
was the happy-go-lucky one, and you were the one always grilling me.
Well, no, no, no.
Okay,
That this is
okay,
where we have to go to therapy about this. Okay,
okay.
so anyway, like a Thelma and Louise, that's what they remind me of, which
Yeah, they do.
I really like that dynamic. Okay.
And they miraculously get away in time before the hunters are able to appear on
Mm,
site.
And Kim, okay, so
Oh,
the
Kim.
hunters come up to Kim's house and they ring the doorbell and Kim answers. And this is where I'm actually very, very impressed by how Kim performs. She is so good at kind of like answering the questions, but not,
Deflecting.
yeah,
Is it
deflecting.
deflecting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's not answering the questions wholly. Like
Yeah,
she's just
but
kind of
she's
like,
not being dishonest, but she's
no,
not being forthcoming, right?
yeah.
And she is, so she's not lying because it's always difficult, obviously, to lie, even
Yeah.
on not on a reality show.
And I think when you're lying, it's actually very, very obvious.
Yeah, so she gives half truths and hidden truths, white lies. She's very natural at it. She stonewalls them. She doesn't give them any excessive information. She doesn't fumble. She's just a star witness. If you ever go on the run, she is who you want as your protective friend. Like she will cover for you to the end.
And I think this is one of the things, if you do become a fugitive on the show, like say for contestants in later seasons, one of the most important things is perhaps teaching your close contacts how much information they can actually divulge,
Yeah.
and like telling them, oh, you don't actually have to like say everything.
Yeah, I think it's better to not tell them anything so that they don't even
Mm,
have to lie about it. The less they know, the less they have to lie.
yeah,
But Kim, masterful work here.
very
She
masterful.
feigns ignorance. She's like, I don't know. I know lots of Shelleys. Tell me one.
Yeah. Do
You
you feel
know,
like she's actually had like come in contact maybe with the law enforcement before, and perhaps that's why she seems so experienced? Because I think most people, when you are faced with someone
nah, I
who
don't
of
know about that.
authority,
I think she's just a very cool customer. She's very experienced. Maybe she's
yeah,
seen a lot of NCIS.
yeah,
She's just lived life. She's
she,
wise. She's not gonna be rattled by two reality TV show security guys. You know what I mean?
yeah, she doesn't crack under pressure. It's
Even when
great.
they grill her and they say, I think you're lying, she's like, well, I've told you the truth. Big deal. We've seen other younger witnesses and close contacts when they say stuff like, you're lying, they
Stumble.
tremble, they stumble, they fold their arms, they
Yeah.
retract in their body language. They give away something even when they're not saying something, just through their body language, enough
Mm.
for the hunters to detect information,
Mm,
right?
mm, 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 mm.
She is great. Jennifer Pan, we've just been watching a documentary about that killer Jennifer Pan. She needs to take tips from Kim. She needed to back in the day, okay? Or maybe not. She was guilty, so good.
Oh, anyway, I definitely feel I think the MVP of this episode is definitely Kim, just because she is such a
Oh,
cool cat.
Kim, the barn buyer, a friend in need, a friend indeed. Good work. You are so good at this.
So, the hunters come by Kim's house, and we see that Ondeanne and Shelly had just gotten away, but not before the hunters actually release a social media campaign on the internet, and they've been putting up posters of Ondeanne and Shelly, sensing that they are somewhere just around the area,
And a
and
reward.
yeah, with a reward, and hoping that someone who is local will dob them in.
Yeah, this is interesting because I've thought about this and I think the best gameplay for the fugitives is to use strangers to navigate through. Ironically, the best gameplay for the hunters is to use strangers to find the fugitives. And this is a tactic that we often see in the game late game, like in the last 2 or 3 days, they'll bombard the community with social media and rewards. Here, I think this shows the hunters are a little bit desperate. They're a little bit behind the eight ball. They're a little bit behind schedule. It's already halfway through the show and they've only caught
Three
three
teams.
teams. So we see them dropping this social media reward campaign a little bit early compared to past seasons. But this is always a super effective tactic.
Yes, it is. So we see the girls, Ondine and Shelley, they're around the Winchelsea area. They've been walking around, going up to house,
Hmm.
asking for accommodations, but they've been getting rejected, and it's hard. I mean, like being a fugitive on the run.
This would be tough. We've seen in the
Yeah.
past, like, the beach besties just walk up to anybody and get help straight away. Like, get offered holiday houses and money and transport and food and accommodation. Here we see the reality of it, right? That knocking on door to door, people are going to be a bit wary,
Oh, very
scared, and
suspicious. I mean,
suspicious. You look creepy. You look desperate. You got a camera crew with you. It's not unless people know the show,
yeah.
they're going to freak out. This is weird,
Yes,
right?
I know. I mean, like, say, okay, if a fugitive on the run, like, say, from the show came up to our house and you answered the door, would you let them stay in the house?
I would. I would.
Okay.
Because I know the show,
Yeah,
and
yeah, that's true.
I'd invite them on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a dog though, so that might be a little bit of a
He
problem.
might not like it. Anyway, Richard is the one that ends up helping them, and Richard is an interesting fella. He's a little bit of a nature boy, hippie-ish. He's a head to tail, paddock to plate, ass to mouth kind of guy. Okay, no Diddy. Anyway, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, he seems very, very nice.
He's cooking them lamb, and he and his wife offer them. I'm gonna try and get this right. A geodesic dome.
Yes, that was interesting. I was amazed to see it because I don't think I've ever seen one before, and just in someone's backyard too.
Yeah, these are cool. They look spectacular. Definitely an upgrade from the typical caravan parks I used to freaking stay at as a child. Thanks, mum
Mm.
and dad, you cheapskates.
Yeah, so having a look at the geodesic dome, it's like a sphere that's made of timber
Mm-hmm.
and it has like clear screens, I think, around it. So you can see kind of like inside, outside. It's got that very indoor, outdoor kind of feel to it. It's, I think, strong and energy efficient as well because the surface is curved and so it allows heat to be
Yeah.
distributed very evenly.
I would have liked to have seen the show explore a little bit more on it, but
Mm.
maybe it's product placement. They couldn't go too far into it, but these things are freaking cool,
And
man.
Richard has a few of them. That's what he said.
Yeah, he's got a few properties. He hires them out like Airbnbs, like a caravan park essentially.
Yeah. And the interesting thing for Richard was he managed to track them down on Facebook. So some locals had mentioned that Ondeanne and Shelli were asking for accommodations. He saw the post and he managed to, I think he invited them over to his house. And that's where I feel this whole stranger thing, like it's good in a way, but it also kind of has its drawbacks.
Yeah, because you're relying on the community and you're relying on everybody being on your side in the community, but not everybody is so willing or helpful. Some people have nefarious intentions. And on the other side, it also, you're putting your information out there for open
Mm,
discussion. So
yes.
the hunters can easily, which they do, log
Yeah.
onto Facebook and join this discussion, see information being exchanged. The
And it
more
would
you
be very
talk,
easy
the
to
more you
track them
walk.
down.
Yeah, the more you put yourself out there, the more risk there is, but obviously also the more opportunities. And we see this come into play on the show many
Yes.
times.
So we have the hunters coming up to Richard
Yeah.
and asking him about the ghosts.
Richard's more interested in terms of how they found out about his domes, I think. Richard's funny.
Yeah, he's very, very funny.
His
And I
food
think
looks
he
really
was
dry too. But
oh,
anyway.
and also I think he was also very interested in showing them that he had actually butchered a kangaroo
Yeah.
and had offered it up to the ghosts
Yeah, they
for
need some protein
to
and starches and carbohydrates.
well they go on their way.
Funny guy. Interesting
Yeah.
guy.
And I think after the hunters have grilled Richard, he became very cooperative. So he's kind of like an opposite to Kim. So he does tell
Yeah.
them what he knows as much as he could to
Well,
the
he
extent.
seems like a anti-conflict, a pacifist, and, a rational guy. He's going to cooperate with authority.
Peace loving.
He's peace loving. He's not
Yeah.
a drama guy. If he was, he wouldn't be in a geodesic dome cooking organic food. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So like, that's just you can pick up the kind of person he is, and he's just willfully cooperative. And he tells them, look, we found out about them on Facebook, and you probably found out about us on Facebook. I don't think he gave them much more information than that, but he led them on their merry way with probably some kangaroo and some sweet potato.
Yeah. He did, yes. Onwards, we find Ondeanne and Shelli. They are looking for accommodations for that day, and they happen upon John. And this was quite moving, I think, for Shelley and Ondeanne because they have been finding it very hard to find
Yeah.
free lodging, and John very quickly agrees to give them a room.
Ah, John. John is out of a M. Night Shyamalan film, man. He's the guy who comes along and you think he's, the nicest guy, played by Mark Wahlberg, maybe with a beard, right? He comes in, or Joaquin Phoenix, yeah.
Okay.
And you think he's there to help you, and then he offers you food and lodging and
And it's
everything
a
like
very
that.
nice place that
It's a
he's
nice
got.
place.
Yes.
He's lovely, and then suddenly you find out that all the photos in his house are fake, and he's got a basement where he keeps bodies. That's what happens here. No, just joking. what happens is John flips open Facebook and he finds out there's a reward for the two ladies.
Yes.
And
And he, I think very rightly, like he confronts them on it.
he taunts them. Let's
Yeah,
face it. He,
okay,
he
he taunts
taunts
them,
them.
yes.
He literally is like, I'm gonna dob you in. I could. Why don't I? I haven't thought about. Oh, this is
And
cruel, man.
yes,
I don't
and
like
you
this.
can just see the shock on Ondeanne and Shelli's face. They are just,
Yeah.
oh my god, you've invited us into this house. You could just trap us.
This
While the
is a
hunters are on
scary.
the way. Yeah,
This is a
scary.
scary situation for a woman,
Oh, it
even
is.
two women, to
Yeah.
be in with house with a guy, and he's being pushy about his phone, about them touching his phone,
And snatching it back.
snatching it back. If the roles were reversed, I think I don't know. I think there's some dynamics here that make me squeamish and uncomfortable. Anyway, ultimately, he just says, "Look, I've welcomed you into my home. It's just a prank. I'm just playing with you girls."
Yeah, yeah.
And they're so grateful. They go from being terrified of him that they go and hug him. This is classic negging play by a creepy dude, yo. You act nice, then you act mean, and then they're grateful for your niceness. This is a classic neg play out of the player's
Well,
handbook.
to his defense, though, I feel like perhaps this was something that is encouraged by the show
Maybe,
because they
yeah.
have put out a reward for it, and it would be missed drama if no one actually brings it
True
up.
that, true
So
that.
I feel like maybe this was something that he was encouraged
Yeah.
to do
Okay,
on the
I
show's
take it
behalf.
back, John. You're not
Yeah,
creepy. You're
and
a
I
nice
think he
guy.
was being
We're
very
just
nice.
being funny on the show.
But
We
maybe
just-
that's why it came across as a little bit unnatural, I think.
I would have been, get the fuck out of here. I would have grabbed a bowl and smacked him across the head and ran off, and then it would have been a really awkward scene. This is why I never get cast on
Well,
these shows.
Okay, back to the reward. How much money would it be? Would it take you? Like, say, if you saw a fugitive and you had to, like, and you were considering whether
You know
you wanted
what?
to adopt them in.
10 nuggets, sweet and sour sauce. I'm good. You're done. I'm calling. No, seriously? I don't think I would snitch just because you're on a team. Look, if this was real life and real fugitives knocked on my door, I'm calling the popo straight away.
Yeah, like
Of
a real
course,
criminal. You
right?
know that is danger to the community.
If it's family and friends, I'm not calling anyone for any amount of money. In this situation, though, I don't know. Like, I thought I wouldn't because then you're on TV being depicted as a snitch,
it
right?
doesn't look nice.
And it doesn't look nice, and snitches get stitches, right? And then you're forever known as that guy that called in and snitched to the hunters. But everybody has a price, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, okay, 50,000? Is that okay? If I split it with you, would I be forgiven?
Well, say if you have like kids or you're like you
Like,
need something. I don't know.
Cost of living, interest rates, times are getting tough, man. Like, it's a reality show. Look, I wouldn't do it for under 10,000. I honestly wouldn't. I'd rather help these fugitives on their way to try and win the show and win the money than to try and claim something for myself. I definitely wouldn't do it for anything less than that. That's what I think anyway. But who knows? I mean, for times are tough, and there are people out there. I don't blame them for doing it for a couple $100.
Yeah.
I mean, what's in it for them? Really, they got no interest in their survival or their escape. Why not
Yeah.
dob them in?
Yeah.
There's a reward. It's real money. It's easy money.
Oh, well,
it's a tough ethical
yeah,
dilemma, isn't
it
it?
is a tough. I think it is
How
a tough
about you?
question.
What would you do?
Oh, I think if it was on the show, I probably wouldn't, just because I wouldn't like to be portrayed as someone who, like who
Snitches,
snitch.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in real life, I don't know. Yeah, it's a hard
But
question.
how much
to answer.
money on the show would it take for you to pick up that phone? Like, what's the
I
threshold?
think it would depend. If they are nice, I don't think I would. Like
Good
if
on
they,
you.
if
Yeah.
they seem like maybe
I
they
can-
could
I can
actually
be bought.
be
I can
of
be
harm.
bought. Good for you. I can
I don't
trust
think
you.
you can be. I think
Okay.
yeah, I don't think you can be.
Okay.
Yeah,
How
but
much? What's your price? Say a number.
I don't know. Maybe 100 million? I don't know.
100
Wait, they're very
million.
different numbers, aren't they?
Okay. Teresa obviously comes from a lot more wealth than I do. $100 million. They're not going to give you $100 million
No,
unless
I
it's
meant like
Osama bin
no,
Laden. Okay.
No, like 100,000 or a million, I think. But
Wow,
I don't know.
okay.
I think it's a hard, tough question. I'll have to see when it actually happens, which I don't think it will.
Yeah, you never know until
You
you're
never
in
know.
the situation,
Yes.
right? I mean, if they're rude and they start criticizing my lamb and
Yeah.
sweet potato, I might pick up that phone straight away.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that you don't need to do that for any money
Yeah,
at all.
right? Like rude bastards. Anyway, we then see John giving them a lift to the Ballarat Botanical Gardens. This is a weird place to hide out because it's an hour away from the train station where they eventually need to evac, the bus station.
Yes, and it's interesting that Ondeanne and Shelli are going back to the beginning where the
Yeah.
bank heist happened. And we've seen that happen with Joanna and Lee. They went back to Ballarat as well, and that's where things kind of start to get a little bit downhill for them.
Yeah, well, it's a very centralized place geographically in terms of
Mm.
Melbourne. From there, you can go anywhere in Melbourne essentially. But, and also, to go back to the beginning, maybe the hunters wouldn't think of it. But
Yeah.
to go to the Botanical Gardens, and Shelley is absolutely hilarious here. She is so lovely.
I know. She's just
Ondean
taking
is,
photos.
yeah, come and
You
look
know,
at the flowers.
I know.
Ondean, come and look at the flowers.
Ondean is about to snap at her.
These are
Like,
chamomiles. Look at these
yeah,
wisterias.
I
Ondean, look
know.
at these roses. Aren't they lovely?
Yeah, yeah. So I do like. I think Shirley really just makes everything very
She's the
lighter.
yin to
Yeah, yeah,
Ondean's
yeah,
yang. They are just a great couple, aren't they?
yeah.
They are lifelong friends, and you can see why. They just fit each other perfectly, and they tolerate each
Mm.
other's differences
Mm,
and
mm, mm,
embrace
mm,
them. That's the
mm.
thing I really like about this show, and other shows that have duos. You see how dynamics work, and that's what's interesting to me.
A bit like Luke and Ben.
Yes, Luke
Yeah,
and Ben are also
great
another
dynamic.
favorite couple of mine.
Yeah, where you see Ben just supporting Luke in all of his yeah, all of his funny
Quirks,
yeah,
his tanning and
quirks.
so on. Yeah, we also get a bit of a close call with a hunter team just out of the blue. Coincidentally, hey, why don't we go for a drive at the Botanical Gardens, love? Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, and it seems like
Oh,
they are
close
just,
shave.
yeah, very close shave because we see them patrolling the outside of the gardens, and Ondine and Shelley are literally just around the fence, like across
You
the
can see
fence.
them on their GoPro
Yes, on their
footage,
GoPro footage.
literally meters away. The chances are so scant.
Yes.
But yeah, obviously the hunters team have now deduced that the nearest station is Ballarat. That's the nearest exit point, and this is the
Mm.
most likely place for them to go. And they get live scanning of all the CCTV and all the local transport hubs, the streets, and they have locked down the area. So this
Yes.
is not looking good for the ladies.
They've also asked the train conductors, the station controllers, they've showed them photos of the girls and just told them to alert them if they appear.
Yeah.
And we see Ondine and Shirley going back to the station. They board a bus
Well, they
to
get John
Castlemaine.
to buy the tickets, don't they?
Yes, they did. Yes,
Which is a really
which is a
clever
good.
move.
So you can see, like I think,
Some good
Ondine is
gameplay.
very very smart in this.
Yeah.
And Shelley as well too. But they are being very careful. But it's inevitable. It's always hard, I think, in a central location where there's a lot of CCTV footage that their whereabouts will be leaked to the hunters.
Yeah. To paraphrase a quote, the hunters only need to be right once, but the fugitives need to be perfect every day.
That's
So,
that's hard. That's just like going to the casino.
yeah. So one mistake will slip them up. So even though they've been perfect up to this point, or
Mm,
not perfect, but they've been very effective up to
mm,
this
mm, mm,
point,
mm, mm.
this one mistake of going into a high CCTV area might undo them.
Yeah, we see Ondine and Shelley on the bus. They're on their way to Castlemaine and they stop by Guildford. And that's where they have this dilemma of whether they want to get off or continue on.
Yeah, and so it's a little bit of a cliffhanger. We don't know whether they get off, whether they get on,
It shows someone getting off the bus, but
but
we
we
don't
don't
know if
know.
it's
We
them.
don't know if it's them. And at the same point in time, the hunters roll up behind the bus and track them and follow them for a couple of suburbs down the road and are able to just follow them. And so at this point, we literally don't know if Ondine and Shelley are on the bus or off the bus. All we know is the hunters are behind the bus.
It seems very probable that this is the bus that they are on, that they have caught up to them, and they're just about to pounce on them any
and
moment.
and the episode ends with us not knowing what happens. Oh, this is a real cliffhanger. I can't wait for episode
Yeah,
7. This is a
and
banger.
and it's great too because we see this meeting point of Akec and Joe.
And that brings us up to date. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just in the car chatting away, and suddenly Akec looks over to the right and she's like, "Oh my god, is that the hunters?"
Yeah.
And what are the chances of that? It's such a small world.
Right. The chances are very slim. But, one thing you don't see on the show is how much freaking camera crew and setup goes into making every single scene on this show. There are literally dozens of production staff, sound boom, engineers, camera crew, gaffers, best boys, whatever, producers running around the streets in support vehicles behind the hunters and behind the fugitives, filming every single thing. I know we're told it's only one. Trust me, it's more than that. It's only
Yeah.
one at all times, but at other times, there's a lot. So you can imagine Akec and Joe driving down the street. They would just see what would look like a massive film set, essentially. A whole quiet country town full of filming production. That's what it would look
Yeah.
like.
And just people with cameras, which is not something you see normally.
Yeah.
And that would definitely attract their attention.
Definitely attract their attention. And so anyway, we're brought up to speed, and there we have it. Akec, Joe, Ondeanne, Shelli, same time, same place, with hunters right there.
Ooh, it's gonna be a cliffhanger. Okay, before we wrap up, what are the chances of Ondeanne and Shelli getting away from this?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's. I've been fond of Ondeanne and Shelli the whole game through. I think they've played a really good game. They've been discreet. They've had good diversions. They've used effective contacts. They've laid low. But here, their fatal mistake was walking into a town with the hunters having pre-information on it.
Yes.
I think it is 50-50, honestly, down the middle. No, actually, I think they're done for. I think
Yeah.
I think it's 70-30. I think if they gotten off early,
Yeah.
the hunters will backtrack and find them. If they're still on the bus, they're obviously done for. I don't see them getting out of this.
Yeah, I think it's quite pretty concrete that they are on the bus.
Really? Ah.
Because they've got the footage from the Ballarat station. They know exactly which bus it is. I pretty much
True.
think they're done for. I mean, it's
Yeah.
100%, if not
Okay,
90% for
okay.
me.
If the
like,
hunters mess this
yeah.
up, they are damn near incompetent.
I
think.
don't see any way that they can get, like, the hunters can corner them in the bus. If they get out of the bus, they can chase them. The
So what
hunters
are
look
their
like they're very
options?
good runners. I just hope that if they do run, they don't, like, cross the road without looking
What
for
can
a
they
car.
do then? If they're on the bus, is there anything they can do to get out of this?
Well, they're pretty much cornered if they're in the bus.
Yeah, unless they bribe the bus driver to break the law and just to drive off, they're done for, I think. Oh,
Yeah.
but I hope they get out of it. We'll find out in the next episode, episode 7. Oh,
Yeah. Well, what we do know is Akec and Joe, I think they probably will be okay. And
yeah, unless they get spotted in the car, but I think they'll
yeah,
be okay.
no, they will be fine.
Okay.
Thank you guys for listening to the show. This is the Recreate
Thank you,
podcast
guys.
by Michael and Teresa. You can find us on Recreate on TikTok and Instagram. That's WRECK.CREAT, where you can watch highlight videos of what we've talked about. If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe to our pod. It really helps us a big deal. We are extremely grateful for any support you give. We'll be back shortly with the next episode, which I think will be very exciting. Stay tuned.
See ya.